Welcome to the Sci-Fi Continuum. I'm Stan, your narrator. Make sure you subscribe to our channel for more stories. It all started with a joke about getting to the bottom of the human heat cycle. And before I knew it, my crewmates were whispering that I'd finally found a way to keep the ship's coolant system from overheating. Little did they know the real heat was about to come from a purple-skinned scientist with a flirtatious grin and a very specific research proposal. The Aegis Dawn cruised through a nebula that looked like a spilled glass of electric blue. We were on a routine survey of uncharted worlds, a job that usually meant long stretches of data entry, routine maintenance, and the occasional mental breakdown of one of the alien crew members. I, Chief Engineer Milo Stubbs, preferred the buzz of the reactor to the quiet of the command deck. My hands were always dirty, my jokes always a little too loud. It was on the forward hangar deck that I first saw her. Kira stepped out of a medbay pod, her purple skin catching my eyes. The color of bruised grapes, smooth and almost luminous, seemed to pulse as she moved. A strip of black piping traced the seams of her beige turtleneck, the fabric hugging her form, leaving a cutout in the chest that showed a generous portion of violet flesh. Her hair fell in loose waves, a golden cascade that framed a face lit by bright brown eyes. Her lips were painted a warm orange-brown, a splash of color that made her look like a sunrise on an alien world. She was tending to a crew member whose left arm hung limp from a plasma incision. Kira's hands glowed faintly as she sealed the wound with a field of nanites, her focus absolute. I was drawn to the contrast, the softness of the cutout, the strength in her gestures. My engineering mind recognized a perfect blend of biology and tech, but my human brain recognized something else entirely. "Hey there," I called, wiping oil from my forearms. "Need a hand with that?" She turned, eyes locking onto me with a mischievous glint. "Oh, hi there, human. Thanks, but I've got the situation under control. I'm tending to one of your crewmates." She read my name tag. "I see, Chief Engineer Milo Stubbs. Nice to meet you, sir." She looked at me with a sudden flirtatious expression. "I'm Kira. I have a question. One that isn't about circuitry." I laughed, a low rumble that echoed off the metal walls. "You've got my attention. What's up?" She stepped closer. "I've always been interested in studying human biology. I want to understand how your reproductive responses work. It's to expand my knowledge of treating your species. And maybe for a little fun." For a moment I thought she was joking. The ship's intercom crackled with a joke about coolant, and I could hear the distant snicker of the communications officer. But Kira's smile was too real, too confident. She brushed a strand of hair from her face and leaned in. "You're incredibly beautiful," she whispered, "and I've never been with a human before. Please show me what makes you heat up." My mind raced. I glanced at the medical bay, where the injured crew member lay, eyes flashing with pain. I knew my duty was to keep the ship running, to keep the crew alive. Yet here was a chance to explore something I'd never even thought about. And honestly, the idea of a purple-skinned medical specialist with a flirtatious grin was too tempting to ignore. I shrugged, the sound of metal creaking under my weight. "All right, let's see what you've got." She smiled, the orange-brown of her lips deepening. "Excellent. Follow me to the observation deck when I'm done here. It's a private space." The observation deck was a glass-walled chamber that overlooked the swirling nebula. Stars pierced the violet fog like pinpricks of light. Kira closed the hatch behind us, the soft hiss of airlocks sealing us in. The buzz of the reactor faded, replaced by the low thrum of the ship's life support. She turned, facing me fully, her brown eyes alight. "First," she said, "I need a baseline. I want to record your heart rate, skin temperature, and any involuntary muscle responses." I raised an eyebrow. "You want to run a full diagnostics?" She placed a small device on my chest. It glowed a soft teal, syncing with my biometric sensors. "Just a simple readout. Think of it as data collection." I watched the readout flicker, the numbers climbing as my pulse quickened. Kira leaned in, her breath warm against my ear. Humans have a curious way of reacting to anticipation. It's a cascade of hormones and feelings. I felt a strange heat spread across my torso, a sensation that had nothing to do with the ship's coolant. My hands, usually steady, twitched slightly. She stepped back, tapping the console. Baseline recorded. Now let's move on to stimulus. Kira pressed a button, and the deck lights dimmed to a soft amber glow. Soft music filtered through the ship's speakers. Something slow, rhythmic, with a low beat that made the floor vibrate just enough to feel each pulse. She turned, her hips swaying with a confidence that made my chest tighten. "Humans respond to touch," she said, extending a hand. "May I?" I hesitated a moment, the engineer in me remembering proper protocol. Then I thought of the joke about coolant, of the crew's whispers, and of the way my own heart hammered in my ears. I let my hand rise. Her fingers brushed my forearm, a feather-light contact that sent a jolt through my nerves. The device on my chest spiked, recording a surge. Kira's smile widened. "Interesting. You are responsive." I swallowed, trying to keep my voice steady. What are you looking for?" She pressed the device against my neck, the sensor humming. "I want to see the entire spectrum. Your mind, your body, the hidden parts." She traced a finger down my collarbone, then up the curve of my shoulder. The contact was thrilling, the device pulsing in tandem. My breath came in shallow bursts, each one a reminder that I was still a human, still vulnerable. "Do you mind if I opened my mouth, and the word I expected to say, "Yes," came out as a guttural, "Nope." Kira laughed, a sound that seemed to reverberate through the glass. "You're playful," she said. "I like that." Her hand slipped under my shirt, finding the metallic patch that covered my reactor core, a protective layer of my own making. The skin of my ribcage was warm, the metal under it cool. She pressed her palm to the metal, feeling the faint vibration of my pulse through the alloy. "It's fascinating," she breathed. "Your heat is more than just physics. It's desire." I could feel the ship's magnetic field humming around us, a reminder that we were floating in a void of stars. I was an engineer, a man who fixed broken systems, yet here I was, a participant in an experiment I hadn't imagined. Kira's eyes never left mine. They held a curiosity that was both scientific and intimate. She withdrew her hand and stepped back, the device still humming against my skin. "Let's try a different approach." She pressed a button, and a hollow projector sprang to life. A translucent image of a human female appeared, eyes closed, body arching in a slow, deliberate motion. The scene was tasteful, a soft silhouette against a dark background, the kind of art you might find in a museum rather than a starship. Kira turned the hollow to face me. "Observation is one thing," she said. "Participation is another." My mind raced. The Aegis Dawn's crew was spread across the ship, each occupied with their own duties. If I stayed here, we'd be leaving a gap. But the heat in my veins was undeniable. I looked at the hollow, then at Kira, and something else. The wounded crew member in the medbay, still fighting for life. I took a breath. "What happens after this?" She smiled, a soft, almost shy curve of her lips. "We finish the data. We share results. And perhaps we see where this chemistry leads." The hollow flickered, the figure moving in a rhythm that matched the music. Kira's hand slipped to the side of my neck, coaxing the device to vibrate. My shoulders relaxed under her touch, the tension of the day melting away. My mind, usually occupied with schematics and power grids, now focused on the feel of her skin, the press of her palm, the electric surge from her fingertips. The device on my chest recorded a crescendo. Kira's eyes widened. "Baseline is..." Off the charts. You are a perfect specimen. I laughed, a deep, throaty sound that seemed to echo out the deck. Do you think the ship's coolant will be jealous? She chuckled, the sound bright against the hum of the ship. I think you'll need a little more than coolant to keep you stable. Our conversation dissolved into a series of glances, touches, and soft murmurs. Kira leaned close, her breath warm against my ear. Humans have a unique response when they feel safe. Let's see if we can create that safety together. I slipped an arm around her waist, pulling her closer. The fabric of her turtleneck brushed against my skin, the beige and black piping feeling like a barrier between us and the cold vacuum beyond. Her purple skin glowed faintly under the ambient light, a living tapestry of color and texture. You know, I said, I'm beginning to think this is all an elaborate setup to seduce me. You're framing it as something else. She smiled mischievously and nodded. Then she pressed her body against mine, the cutout in her chest exposing more violet skin. My hand moved to the opening, tracing the smooth curve of her ribs. She gasped, a sound that made the device on my chest spike again. The hollow shifted, reflecting the change in our posture, the intensity of our connection. You're different, I said, voice husky, in a good way. She tilted her head, eyes glittering. And you're more than an engineer. You're passionate. There was a pause, a moment where the ship seemed to hold its breath. The nebula outside swirled, the stars a distant glitter. The music continued, a low rhythm that seemed to match the beating of our hearts. Kira's hand found the strap of my tool belt, pulling at it gently. Let's remove a few layers, shall we? I lifted my shirt, revealing the metallic plates that protected my chest. The metal was cool, but my skin underneath was flushed. Kira's fingers traced the edge of the plate, then slipped beneath, finding the heat of my flesh. She pressed a kiss to my sternum, the contact sparking a shiver that ran down my spine. The hollow projected a soft glow, casting silhouettes of us on the glass. The ship's lights dimmed further, the only illumination coming from the nebula outside and the faint luminescence of Kira's skin. She moved, slipping her hand between my ribs, sliding down to the small of my back. I felt the tension in my shoulders release, the weight of responsibility lightening for a moment. My engineering instincts kicked in, assessing the heat, the pressure, the rhythm. I realized that this was a different kind of system, one that required care, patience, and a steady hand. Kira's lips found mine, soft and insistent. The kiss was warm, a contrast to the cool metal of my suit. My hand slipped to her waist, pulling her closer. Her skin was warm, her breath quickening. The device on my chest pulsed faster, recording each spike as if it were a data point in a grand experiment. We moved toward the observation window, the glass framing the endless violet of the nebula. The view was breathtaking, a reminder of how small we were in the vastness of space. And yet, in that small bubble of the Aegis dawn, we felt incredibly significant. Kira turned, her lips brushing my ear. "Do you trust me?" she asked. I felt the weight of the question, the implication of vulnerability. I answered without hesitation. Nope. It sounded absurd, but it carried a tone of playful defiance. She smiled, a glow spreading across her face. "Good," she whispered. "Then let's finish this study." The next minutes blurred into a dance of bodies, a choreography of heat and touch. Kira's hands explored the contours of my back, the soft parts hidden beneath my armor. My fingers traced the smooth curve of her neck, the place where her purple skin met the beige fabric. The cutout in her chest framed her heartbeat, a rhythmic pulse that matched the thrum of the ship. Our movements were deliberate, each press, each sigh a data point on a chart only we could see. The hollow flickered, the projected image shifting to reflect the intimacy of the moment, but we paid it no mind. The only data we cared about was the way our bodies responded, the way desire built a bridge between us. When we finally reached a climax, It was not just a physical release. It was a convergence of curiosity, humor, and a kind of affection that felt both alien and familiar. Kira's skin flushed a deeper shade of violet, her eyes closing in a mixture of pleasure and triumph. My own chest heaved, the device on my heart registering a massive peak. We lay together, the observation deck's glass cool against our backs, the nebula painting its colors across our faces. Kira rested her head on my shoulder, her orange-brown lips curved in a satisfied smile. "Your data is exquisite," she said softly. "I think I understand humans better now." I chuckled, the sound low. "And I think I finally have a reason to keep the coolant away from the heat cycle." She laughed, a sound that seemed to harmonize with the ship's engines. "You're a funny man, Milo." We stayed that way for a while, watching the nebula drift by. The Aegis Dawn carried on its course, its systems humming as normal. The rest of the crew continued their duties, none the wiser about the experiment that had just taken place in the observation deck. When we finally rose, the ship's intercom crackled with a familiar voice. "All units, this is Commander Haynes. We've got a minor coolant surge in the aft section. Engineering, please attend." I glanced at Kira, who raised an eyebrow. "Looks like your coolant joke finally has a chance to work." She slipped a hand into mine, her grip firm yet gentle. "Let's go fix it. After all, you promised to keep the ship running, right?" I nodded, feeling a surge of pride. "Always." We walked in comfortable silence for a few steps before Kira glanced sideways at me. "There's something I should clarify," she said, her tone softer now. "Oh?" I smirked. "About the data?" She gave a small, almost embarrassed laugh. "Partly. The research was real. I truly did want to understand human physiology better. Your hormonal responses, your cardiovascular spikes, the way emotional safety affects arousal. It's valuable information." I raised a brow. "But..." She stopped walking. "But I also flirted with you because I think you're handsome, Milo." Her brown eyes held mine. No mischief this time, just honesty. "The research proposal was convenient." I laughed under my breath. "So I was a professional curiosity and a personal preference?" "Yes," she said simply. "Both." We resumed walking. "And now?" I asked. "Now I have practical data I can use to treat future human patients more effectively," she replied. "I understand your species in a way textbooks never could." A faint violet blush tinted her cheeks. "And I may have discovered that clinical detachment is occasionally overrated." I grinned. "Just don't start prescribing observation deck therapy to everyone." She smiled back. "Only the handsome engineers." The intercom crackled again, and the hum of the ship grew louder as we neared engineering. Duty returned, steady and grounding. But something had shifted. Not just heat, not just data. Understanding. And maybe the beginning of something less scientific,